Have you ever left a conversation feeling drained or subtly manipulated without knowing why? We often assume the most dangerous people are obviously cruel or toxic. Carl Jung, the renowned Swiss psychiatrist, revealed a deeper truth. The most damaging individuals can be everyday people driven by unconscious forces. Jung believed our psyche harbors hidden archetypes and shadow aspects that, if ignored, can overtake our behavior. In this video, we'll uncover 6 hidden psychological archetypes Jung warned us about, patterns of behavior that can quietly wreak havoc on your well-being. They aren't literal monsters. They're often ordinary folks unaware of the roles their unconscious is making them play. If you're excited to explore the mind, subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps spread these insights. Now, let's dive into these 6 archetypes one by one and see how they operate, and how to recognize them before they can do harm. 1. The unconscious manipulator. The one who uses emotion to control. This archetype often appears as a helpless friend or partner who pulls at your heartstrings. Think of someone who regularly makes you feel guilty or responsible for their well-being. I don't know what I'd do if you ever left me. I need you. I might fall apart without you. Their words sound loving, but over time you notice a pattern. You're always walking on eggshells to keep them stable. The unconscious manipulator uses emotional dependency as a tool of control without even realizing it. Why unconscious? Because this person isn't scheming like a movie villain. They're driven by unseen fears and needs. In Jungian terms, an unresolved emotional wound, a complex, is running the show. For example, a deep fear of abandonment might take on a life of its own inside them. Jung observed that a complex can behave like an autonomous little personality within us, an animated foreign body that hijacks our behavior. The unconscious manipulator truly feels desperate to keep you close. Their psyche's survival strategy is to trigger your pity and guilt so you won't leave. They aren't choosing to manipulate. Their unconscious fear is in control. The danger here is emotional exhaustion. You may bend over backwards to reassure them, sacrificing your own needs and boundaries. Over time, your identity and independence can erode as you live in constant service to their emotional crises. To protect yourself, first recognize the red flags: constant guilt tripping, extreme clinginess, or dramatic meltdowns when you assert yourself. Remind yourself that their feelings are not yours to manage. You can care about someone without being responsible for their every emotional whim. Offer support when reasonable, but you are not their therapist or savior. Jung would encourage compassion for their inner wounds, but also firm boundaries. Encourage them to seek professional help or self-reflection, and know when to step back. By keeping your boundaries strong, you prevent their unconscious fears from running your life. 2. The bearer of the persona, the one who lives behind a mask. This type of person is a consummate chameleon. Picture someone who is always perfectly put together and unfailingly polite, the model employee, the ideal friend, but you never glimpse their true feelings. Everything about them seems calculated to make a good impression. With the persona bearer, you're not sure who they really are behind that social mask. In Jungian psychology, the persona is the face we present to the world. We all wear masks to an extent, but trouble arises when someone identifies entirely with their persona, when the mask swallows the person. Jung warned that if you live only as a social role or artificial personality, your true self gets repressed and will retaliate. In other words, a rigid persona is unstable. Think of it like pressure building behind a facade. The danger of befriending or loving a persona bearer is that you may be bonding with a facade. It can feel hollow, and occasionally you'll witness an unexpected crack in their demeanor. For example, that eternally agreeable colleague might one day snap in anger or fall into a sudden depression, signs that their suppressed self is breaking out. It's jarring because it seems out of character, but in truth that hidden reaction is part of their real character, starved for expression. How to handle this archetype? Authenticity is key. If you sense someone is always performing, Gently encourage them to share what they really think or feel. Show that you value them for who they are, not for the role they play. Sometimes a persona bearer just needs permission to be real. However, if a person refuses to ever take off the mask, keep your expectations realistic. You cannot force true intimacy with someone who clings to a role. Protect your own emotional needs. Seek relationships where authenticity is a two-way street. 3. The owner of the repressed shadow, the one who explodes without warning. This archetype is a too-good-to-be-true person who unknowingly carries a ticking time bomb. Imagine someone who prides themselves on being always kind, calm, and proper. They claim they never get angry. Then one day, over a trivial annoyance, they suddenly explode. The sweet, gentle friend launches into a screaming fit, or the polite coworker blurts out a shockingly harsh comment under stress. Afterward, they look bewildered, as if thinking, "What came over me?" Jung would explain that their shadow broke loose. The shadow is all the qualities a person refuses to acknowledge in themselves: aggressive impulses, ugly thoughts, forbidden urges, etc. The owner of a repressed shadow has tried to seal those qualities away. But as Jung warned, what we bury inside doesn't disappear. It gathers energy in the unconscious. Eventually, the shadow erupts, often at an inconvenient moment. The overly calm person's hidden rage builds up until it bursts out uncontrollably. They might honestly feel that the outburst wasn't them, because it was the part of them they normally hide, seizing control for a moment. Why is this dangerous to others? Because you can't predict it. One minute everything's fine, the next you're faced with an outsized rage or a hurtful act that blindsides you. Such people also tend to project their denied traits onto those around them. For example, someone who won't admit their own anger might constantly accuse others of being hostile or unkind. How to cope with this? If you suspect a friend or partner is bottling up a lot of feelings, try to create a safe space for them to vent gradually. Let them know it's okay to feel angry or sad sometimes. A little honest expression can relieve some pressure. Ultimately, though, they must confront their own shadow. You cannot integrate someone else's dark side for them. If their unpredictable outbursts or accusations are hurting you and they refuse to get help, you may need to step back for your own well-being. Don't take their eruptions to heart. It's a reflection of their inner conflict, not your fault. 4. The moral controller, the one who cloaks control in virtue. This person wraps their control in a cloak of righteousness. It could be a partner, parent, or mentor who constantly tells you what you should do for your own good. On the surface, their guidance sounds noble. For example, a spouse might say, "I only criticize you to help you improve." But you notice you're always the one being corrected or judged. The moral controller uses high ideals or concern as a subtle weapon to dominate your choices. Psychologically, what's going on? Often this individual has unconsciously identified with an archetype of the judge or savior. Jung observed that when a person's ego inflates with an idealized image, they start to believe they are that voice of authority. They see themselves as uniquely upright or enlightened, which in their mind justifies why they should direct everyone else. Their own shadow, pride, control, or intolerance, stays hidden behind a smug sense of virtue. In reality, they are projecting their desire for power onto you under the guise of helping you. It's a classic case of shadow hypocrisy. They can't see the arrogance in their behavior because they've labeled it as righteousness. The effect on you can be suffocating. Being around a moral controller, you may constantly feel not good enough. It seems nothing you do is ever good enough for them. You start doubting your own judgment and values. Over time, you might even internalize their critical voice, feeling guilty or ashamed for wanting to live on your own terms. To break free from this grip, remember that true guidance respects your autonomy. Caring advice is different from coercion. If someone's high standards are making you feel small or controlled, set clear boundaries. You might say, "I value your perspective, but I need to make this decision myself." Stand firm in your own values and listen to your inner voice. Jung emphasized individuation, developing your own moral compass rather than living under someone else's. If the moral controller won't respect your boundaries, distance may be necessary. No matter how pure their intentions sound, no one has the right to run your life in the name of righteousness. 5. The complexed one. The one who turns you into their emotional battlefield. This archetype pulls you into drama that isn't actually about you. The person is reacting to unresolved wounds from their own past, but they cast you in a role in that inner script. It can be baffling and unfair. For example, say you're dating someone who was horribly betrayed before. They constantly accuse you of cheating or lying, even though you've done nothing wrong. In short, they're fighting a ghost from their past, and you've been assigned the villain or savior role in the story they keep replaying. Jung's concept of the complex explains this well. A complex is like a knot of emotional energy in the psyche, formed by past trauma or conflicts. It has its own mini-personality and agenda. When something in the present touches that knot, the person flips into the old emotional script. It's as if part of them is stuck in that past experience, and in that moment they react to you as though you were the one who hurt them long ago. They are not truly seeing you. They are seeing a projection of their past. The result is a relationship full of landmines. You trigger them without meaning to and find yourself accused of things you never did or said. It's exhausting, confusing, and often heartbreaking. You may try desperately to prove you're not the bad figure they imagine, but it's never enough. Because the real issue lies in their psyche, not in your actions. How to handle the complexed one? First, remind yourself that it's not actually about you. Don't internalize their accusations or intense reactions as your fault. If you notice a recurring pattern, like every time you're a bit late they freak out that you'll abandon them, point it out calmly and encourage them to reflect on why they feel that way. They may start to recognize the pattern themselves. Ultimately, they may need therapy or serious self-work to untangle that complex. You cannot single-handedly fix someone's deep-seated issues. Set boundaries to protect yourself. If they refuse to acknowledge the pattern and you remain the permanent villain in their inner drama, you might have to step away for your own sanity. Ultimately, everyone has to face their own unconscious conflicts. You don't have to be a casualty of someone else's war. 6. The psychic vampire. The one who drains your soul in every encounter. Our final archetype is the chronic drainer, the person who leaves you feeling exhausted or emotionally flat after every interaction. They might always have a crisis or complaint and demand your constant sympathy. Their conversations are one-sided venting sessions, and any attempt you make to help gets brushed aside. They don't truly want advice, just an audience for their misery. Or they're endlessly clingy, needing your attention at all times. In short, they feed on your emotional energy because they can't generate enough of their own. As a symbol, the vampire, a being that can't live without feeding on others, fits perfectly. These individuals haven't learned to draw on their own inner strength. They may have a hollow self-esteem or a gaping inner void. Instead of filling that themselves, they, unconsciously, latch onto others to keep themselves afloat. Their constant negativity or neediness is essentially an attempt to borrow others' life force, attention, or validation to fill their emptiness. The impact on you is steadily corrosive. At first you want to help, but over time you realize it's a one-way street. You give comfort and support, yet nothing improves. Soon you start to dread seeing their name pop up on your phone, knowing they'll just unload more negativity. If you try to pull back, they often resort to guilt. Don't you care about me? This tactic can suck you back in out of pity, and the draining cycle continues. To protect yourself from a psychic vampire, firm boundaries are essential. Limit the length and frequency of these exhausting interactions. It's okay to decline some calls or to step away when they start endlessly complaining. Encourage them to reflect on their situation or seek help, but know you cannot fix it for them. Stand your ground kindly but firmly. You are not an endless battery for someone else. Protect your mental energy. You have the right to decide how much you can give. Caring about someone doesn't mean letting them drag you under. You can be compassionate without being their fuel source. In the end, Carl Jung's warning is clear. The greatest dangers often come from unconscious behavior, not overt malice. Each of these 6 archetypes shows how lack of self-awareness can quietly hurt us and those around us. The solution, Jung would say, is to bring these patterns to consciousness. Once we see them, they lose much of their power. If you spot these behaviors in people around you, you can protect yourself with clear boundaries and understanding. And if you catch a glimpse of any of these tendencies in yourself, take heart. That awareness is the first step toward growth and healing. Jung called this process individuation, becoming a more whole, balanced self. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which archetype felt the most familiar? Have you encountered any of these hidden characters in your life, or maybe noticed a bit of them in your own reflections? Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. Your story might help someone else on their journey. If you enjoyed this exploration, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Remember, knowledge is power, especially self-knowledge. The more we understand our own darkness, the less it can control us. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.